just thought I would share with you today how to create light. If you want to create a bit of drama, you want to create that kind of like dusty look that you get in sunlight. So I've just borrowed this picture from Pexels. So thank you for the photographer. You'll see that up on the top panel here. So thank you for sharing that with us. So this is my finished product. So I'm going to show you how to do that in a minute, but it's this simple. Here's my group. We've got one color layer, one blur, and one levels adjustment. And we went from that to that in less than 5 minutes. Such an easy technique, but one that is so handy when you're wanting to create some artful edits. So let's just turn this group off, pop it at the bottom. So all we've got turned on now is the original image. So I am going to sit on that layer, Command or Control J, because I always make a duplicate. There have been times when I've accidentally drawn on an image and it's just not worth not making a duplicate. And the next thing I'm going to do is grab myself a levels adjustment. As you'll see, my properties box jumps out here because I just like it in the middle of the screen. I love to be able to see what I'm doing clearly. So straight away on the histogram, you can see we're actually missing a whole load of information up here on the left-hand side. So I'm just going to pull that slider down to where information begins. And straight away, we've got a much more moody look, which is what I'm looking for. I might otherwise have pulled my midtones down, but there's no need. It's doing fine as it is now. So let's just leave that roughly where it was and close up my properties box for the levels adjustment. So the next thing I'm going to do is grab myself a transparent layer. So that's this little icon down here at the bottom of your layers panel with the plus on it. Grab a brush, beef the brush tool. I've got an arty brush selected. It doesn't really matter, you can use anything. And the next thing to do is pick a colour from the image. That always helps with your blending. You can try something else if you want, but I just tend to like to use something I've already got. So to colour pick, it's Option or Alt on the Mac, or Alt if you're on a PC. Hold that down and you will get your colour picker and then click. And you'll see your colour appearing here in the colours over here on the left-hand panel. So what am I going to go for? I want something a bit lighter, but not too light. I want something gold so I can blend it in. I always find it easier to start with something a bit darker and make it lighter when I'm doing this. Going the other way around tends to be much more difficult. Okay, so that will do me. I'm here on my blank layer. My flow is at 84%, opacity at 100%. So let's just pull this brush down a bit. And all I'm going to do is just paint in some lines of colour. And I'm not being particularly careful. There's no need. You'll see why in a minute. Let's just paint this in. And just remember that when you have light coming from somewhere, it's always going to be stronger at the point of the window. So it's going to fade out. We're going to deal with that in a minute, but just think about that as you're painting. Right, so here we've got our colour on our empty layer. And we need to make that channel towards the window. So I'm going to make my blank layer a smart object by right-clicking on it and saying convert to smart object, because I'm definitely going to want to be able to come back in and adjust this filter. So let's go filter, blur, and we're going to use the radial blur. And when you get into the box, you've got two choices, spin or zoom. So for this job, we're going to use zoom. And it will usually start off like that, so about 11, and you're going to have this funny grid. If you pull your slider up, you'll see you've got these lines, and imagine this is your light going towards this central point. So you want to drag this central point to roughly where the window is in the image. So I'm going to guesstimate it's about there. This is the blur center. This is where we want this to go to. So this is why I've made this a smart object, because you probably have to have a few goes to get it right. It's not always where you think it is. So let's just say okay and see what we get. Okay, it's actually not too bad. Let's turn it off, turn it on. It is heading towards the window. That's actually probably quite a good guess. So I'm not going to mess about. But if you wanted to, if it's completely the wrong place, you would just double click back on where it says radial blur on your layers panel and come back in, and then you can just move it around a bit. So you then come back out and say okay, and you just see it's just moved ever so slightly. But I think that's probably good enough for us. The next thing to do is grab yourself a layer mask. Make sure you've got the layer mask selected. Black If you've got a colour over here and you want to get back to black, if you hit D on your keyboard, that'll get you back to your foreground and background colours, black and white. So for this, I'm going to drop my opacity down to about 50%-ish. And what I'm going to do is, first of all, I'm going to tidy up around this window. So let's zoom in. That is Command plus on the keyboard, or minus to zoom back out. Make the brush a bit smaller and just get rid of some of this. I don't want it quite so strong. And you definitely wouldn't really have light probably around the top of the window. So let's just paint out where I've carelessly splashed colour absolutely everywhere. And then let's go back out. And what I want to do is just cut into this, because you just don't have solid light like that. It just doesn't happen like that, does it? So let's just click all over it. I'm just going click, click, click. Now here is what I do, because that doesn't look natural at all. Make sure you've got the mask selected. Come back up to filter, and you'll see this top half of your filter panel now. Your radial blur is at the top. So the settings for the blur that you've just created to point that towards the window, this layer, is exactly the same. So I just use that now to blend in my mask. The mask now has the same blur, and if you look very closely on my layers panel, you'll see that those paintbrushes are coming in towards the window. So I'll come back in again, and I'm just going to, I want to cut through, particularly at the end here, because as light comes from a window, it doesn't stay as strong as it gets further away, does it? So it fades out. So we want to fade this out, come back in again, filter, radial blur. Let's see what it looked like before. That's what it looked like before. That's what it's looking like now. So it's still a bit strong, but let's play around with our blend modes before we do anything else. And don't forget, we can always put it back, because we can always come back in onto the mask. So I'm kind of liking lighten or screen. Colour dodge will be too strong unless you want to do something really funky, which is up to you. Hard light doesn't work. Soft light's probably a bit too soft. Let's just have a look what it looked like before. So before and now with, not quite strong enough. Overlay's always more contrasty, but it's not really giving me the look I'm after. I want that kind of lights coming through the window and it's dusty. And this is the effect we're getting here. Probably better on lighten. Screen's just a bit too bright. So I'm going to set it to lighten. I might drop the fill a tiny bit. Turn it off, turn it back on. Like it, but it's still, for me, I would come back in here. So let's come back in on the mask and just paint black out here a bit more, because this is going to be darker as you come out here. So before and after, maybe still a little bit more, get rid of it a bit more, filter, radial blur, before and after. So I would probably come back in and spend ages. So I'm doing this quickly for you, but I would spend quite a bit of time making that right. So that is a quick and easy technique. If you just want to add a bit of drama, to come back in, I keep fiddling with this now, I can't help it. If you want to come in and just create some drama in one of your images, don't forget to just drop the light a little bit using a levels adjustment first. That wouldn't work so well if we just left it without the levels. So that's before the levels adjustment, and that's with the levels adjustment. So make sure you use a levels adjustment to non-destructively edit the image to begin with, and then create a blank layer and create that extra bit of light. Loads of uses for that. And don't forget to just come in and make sure it looks natural by thinking about how light interacts naturally. So it's not the same strength of light further away from the window, and spend some time just adjusting it and using your radial blur again to just paint out your brush marks before and after. So let's just see what I had the first time around, my original group. Let's turn that on and put it back up to the top. Don't know whether I like it better. Kind of different, isn't it? Different effect. Kind of like that one better because I wasn't under pressure filming myself doing this. So let's just look on the mask. So the only difference you can see, I didn't make my original paintings. This is the one I've just done with you here. So this one at the top I did on my own. I've got much sharper lines as I created the original colour. So that's probably a tip. Make sure that you don't spread your light out quite so far and then try and fix it. And I think the blend modes were the same. Let's have a look. Screen. I used screen blend mode, and on this one I've used lighten. So let's just have a look. What happens if we turn this to screen? Yeah, perhaps now when I've done some more brushing out, it does actually work a little bit better. Kind of probably pull down my fill. Very often, playing around with your blend modes is also about playing around with your fill and your opacity. So sometimes it can look good on lighten at 100%, but actually come onto screen, doesn't look so natural until you adjust your fill. So it's always worth playing around. I kind of like that. It's definitely giving me more the effect that I like. Anyway, I'll leave it there because I'll waffle on all day otherwise. I hope that's a useful tip for you. If there's anything in particular you'd like to learn, please don't hesitate to get in touch and let me know. Okay, have fun. I will see you next week. Bye for now.